Hello and welcome to Think Watercolour. Today's demonstration is loosely based on this photo that I took a couple of years ago. I'd been walking up on Bakestondale Moor, which is on the edge of the Peak District National Park, close to Lyme Park, and on my way down to Bollington village I came across this solitary wind-blown tree with the view across to Cheshire behind it. On the left of the picture you can just about make out White Nancy, a local landmark. If I zoom in you can see it more clearly, and I'll just add a picture of White Nancy to show you what it looks like. It was built to commemorate the victory of the Battle of Waterloo, and I think it was originally thought to be a folly. Anyway, back to the image. It's not a brilliant reference photo, but I thought it would make a good example of what you can do with a little imagination. I decided to create a dramatic sky with storm clouds building, and to place the scene at the bottom of the painting to allow me to create a stronger feeling of depth and scale. So let me show you how I painted this scene. I started with the sky and I mixed up some Naples yellow, some cobalt blue and a grey mixed up from ultramarine and burnt sienna. I painted on dry paper, allowing the colours to blend and mix on the page. I left some of the paper white with a few hard edges. The aim was for the sky to get gradually darker towards the top of the painting to create a feeling of depth. I also softened the horizon line. While the sky was drying, I painted the underwash for the foreground slope with yellow ochre and sap green. For the distant Cheshire plain I used a weak mix of cobalt blue and cobalt teal, again softening the horizon line with a clean damp brush. And for the nearer hills and fields I used sap green and jadeite green in various strengths. Once the first washes were dry, I thought that the sky was a bit too light at the top, so I added another wash of grey mixed from ultramarine and burnt sienna. Only do this when your painting is completely dry, or you run the risk of disturbing the pigments from your underpainting. The trees and hedges were then added using stronger mixes of sap green and jadeite green. Next I loosely painted the leaves on the foreground tree, starting with cadmium yellow, then adding sap green, jadeite green and some ultramarine for the darkest patches. This was all painted wet in wet to allow the colours to bleed together. And for the tree trunk and branches, I used ultramarine and sepia for a strong blackish brown. For the shadows and darker patches on the foreground hillside, I used ultramarine and burnt sienna, adding a few touches of whatever green was available in my palette. I forgot to mention at the start that this is Baohong rough 300 gram paper, which I sometimes use instead of Saunders Waterford. This is a quality paper from China and I highly recommend it, especially when you need a really rough surface. Finally, I added White Nancy with a little white gouache straight from the tube. I then noticed that the yellow in the sky had dried a little too dark for my liking, so I applied some clean water and lifted out some of the pigment with a paper towel. I also felt that the sky needed lightening in the mid area so that the darkest clouds were only at the top to create depth in the painting. So I spritzed the sky with a little water and again lifted out with some of the pigment with some clean paper towel. And then I was finished. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this useful. Sometimes you find a photograph that you're not sure what to do with, but with a little thought you can do something with it. If you like the video, do give it a like, it helps with YouTube. Do subscribe if you're not a subscriber and hit the notification bell for future videos. I do try to post once a week when I can. And thanks again for watching.